In this lesson, we'll see how we can utilize the transmat photon shader. So what this node will allow us to do is completely eliminate the interactions of photons with certain types of objects, or certain objects that have this type of shader assigned to them. So a perfect example of something like this would be if we had a situation where we had our photon light casting source, in our case it's this area light, that was actually contained behind some sort of a piece of geometry. In this case, this might be some kind of a ceiling-mounted fluorescent light or some kind of a light-emitting surface. Now, if we take just a simple base material and assign it to this object, you'll see that we actually don't get any sort of photon shaders that are assigned to it. So in our case, this using this very bright-colored illumination shader, just a base Lambert. So if we take a look inside the shading group for this and expand the mental ray section, you'll see that we don't have any sort of a photon shader connected, which means that photons will not be able to render any kind of information to the surface. Now, what we'll see here in just a moment is that just because the photons are not shading a surface does not mean that the photons are not interacting with the surface. So let's take a look at this, and what we should see is once we render this, that this piece of geometry is actually blocking all of our photons from coming through. And you can see that once we render that is exactly what we have. So this does also become very apparent if we take a look at the actual scene file itself. So you can see that I have enabled the map visualizer so we can a little easier see this, or a little more easily see this. So just to make this a little bit easier to see, let me go to the rendering editors, and in the map visualizer, I'll make the point size just a little bit larger. There we go. And now you can actually see the individual photons. And you can see exactly what I was talking about in that almost all of our photons are being blocked by this piece of geometry. So again, just because we have no photon shader assigned does not mean that the photons won't be interacting with the object. It just means that they won't be able to have any sort of rendering effect on the object. So let's take a look at how we can fix this by using the transmat photon shader. So we'll take a look inside the photonic materials, and here's our transmat. So transmat's just a shorthand term for transparent material. And you'll notice that once we take a look inside the attributes for this, there are actually no attributes to be found. So this is a material that's explicitly meant to have no sort of interaction with photons. So now, once we connect this in, let's go back to our render view, and let's save this for comparison and re-render. Excellent. And now you can see that the photons are no longer being blocked by this object. Now with this transmat photon applied, the photons are really just behaving as if this object is not even in place. Alright, there we go. I just had to refresh my the map visualizer so we can actually see the result here. So this does become a really useful node as far as being able to assign some kind of an exclusion parameter to things like any kind of a light emitting surface that you want to try to simulate, or this is also really useful if you have things like glass windows that you want the photons to be able to pass right through without any sort of interaction from those objects whatsoever. So that's a look at this transmat photon shader.